After you have gone through the process of harnessing, it is time to hitch your horse to the vehicle. Before we begin, it's important to understand the three primary rules of safety. The first is to never leave a hitched horse unattended. No matter how quiet you think your horse is, if something spooks him and you aren't there to hold him, he will take off with the carriage behind him, causing damage to your equipment and potentially injuring himself in the process. The second rule is never remove the bridle of a hitched horse. You want to have control at all times, and even that brief second between the bridle coming off and the halter going on is enough for a dangerous situation to arise. Finally, always remember that the driver is the first in the vehicle and the last out, with reins in hand. This ensures that the horse is always under control. If the passenger was to be the first in or the last out, and the horse decided to take off, they would have no means to stop the horse. Before beginning to hitch, always double-check the harness to ensure that everything is properly in place and that its integrity is not compromised in any way. You should also be sure that your girth is tightened to avoid the saddle slipping. When driving, you should always be prepared with a helmet, gloves, and a whip. The helmet is needed for obvious reasons. It prevents you from seriously injuring yourself should a situation arise or you fall out of the vehicle. Gloves allow you to keep a steady grip on both the reins and the whip, and they stop any painful blisters from forming if grasping either too tightly. The whip is an important aid and will be used to encourage the horse to move forward, to ask for bend, and to reassure the horse. When hitching, the process should occur in an area where the horse has plenty of room to move forward. With a vehicle attached, the horse is wider and cannot turn as sharply, so it is vital that he is not pushed into any small spaces. Driving should also occur on level ground, and the terrain should be suitable to pull a vehicle through. If the ground is too wet or the footing too deep, it will be more difficult for the horse to pull the cart. First, you always bring the vehicle to the horse, who is being held by a second person. You never want to back your horse in between the shafts because he may step on them and hurt himself or break the vehicle. Lift the shafts of the carriage high over the horse's hindquarters to avoid hitting him, and place them through the tugs, like so. Be sure that someone is holding the horse so he cannot move away from the shafts. A second person may be needed to put the second shaft through the tug because the saddle may slip if only one is placed. The tugs serve solely to carry the shafts of the vehicle. If they are the appropriate height, the vehicle seat and floor will be parallel to the ground. If it is dipping downward, the tug may need to be raised, and if it is tipping upward, it needs to be lowered. The next step is to attach the traces to the single tree. The traces are the main way that the horse is attached to the vehicle and thus are consistently under stress. For this reason, they should be checked before use to be sure their integrity is not compromised. They need to be attached first so that the horse is attached to the vehicle and it will move with them should they choose to back or step forward during other parts of the hitching process. They should always be straight, and if they are bent, then the line of draft, which is a straight line along the traces from the breast collar to the vehicle, is considered to be broken. This occurs when the traces are either too long or too short. The horse should have enough room behind him that he can comfortably extend without hitting the vehicle. The next part is a little tricky. The breeching needs to be attached to the shafts to serve as a braking system. To do this, the strap is first brought through the groom's loop on the shaft of the carriage and can be wrapped once, twice, or even 3 times as needed. The strap goes back through itself at the first wrap and is rebuckled. Notice that the height of the breeching is the same as the height of the shafts, allowing it to securely wrap and do its job. You should be able to fit about 1 hand's width behind the breeching when securely attached. It is important that the breeching is done properly because on a vehicle without brakes, this serves as your braking system. As the horse slows and eventually stops, the forward momentum of the carriage is transferred through the shafts where the breeching is attached, and the pressure is transferred to the horse's hind end, stopping the carriage. The breeching can also be used as a trace carrier if needed. The final step is to buckle the overgirth. This simple step is very important because the overgirth stops the shafts from bouncing or tipping up. The overgirth should be tight enough to perform this function, but care should be taken to ensure that it doesn't restrict the horse's movement at all. Now you are all ready to drive. Remember once again that the driver is the first into and out of the vehicle with reins in hand. The driver should enter facing the carriage and sit on the excess part of the reins to avoid them falling and possibly getting caught in the wheel. Once comfortably seated, the driver can pick up the whip and the passenger can get in. Once you are finished driving and the horse is standing quietly, the passenger may first exit the vehicle and hold the horse. The driver can follow suit after putting the whip in the holder, and they should be holding the reins the entire time, exiting facing the vehicle. Now, the process of unhitching is the same as hitching, only backwards. So this time you will start by undoing the overgirth, which releases the pressure on the shafts. Then you will undo the breeching on both sides. This frees the shafts so that we can easily remove them from the tugs in a later step. When you undo the breeching, be sure to loop it back like so that the horse can't step on it. This is followed by the removal of the traces from the vehicle. Detach them from the singletree and loop them over the back so they aren't hanging down hazardously. And finally, the shafts can be removed from the tugs and the carriage can be pushed back and away from the horse. Be sure it is far enough back that the horse cannot step on it, and preferably park it to the side of the arena and face the middle so you have room to go around it to exit. Remember to make sure no part of the harness is hanging down off of the horse before moving him. Thank you for watching and enjoy driving.